Hey, my name is Trish Butcher, and I'm an attorney with Arch Legacy Firm. And today is Whiskey and Wills. So, cheers, everybody. Happy Wednesday. So, I'm here to talk a little bit about estate planning today. I know that a lot of people don't really know what estate planning is, and frankly, it's not exactly what we call an acceptable dinner conversation because, in reality, who wants to sit around the dinner table talking about what happens when we pass away? But if there is one truth in life, it is that we do all eventually pass away. So estate planning is something that actually applies to everyone. And I know that sometimes doesn't feel like the case. There's a lot of misunderstandings and myths about estate planning, or ideas that maybe you need to have millions of dollars or a huge estate for estate planning to apply to you and your family. And that's in reality just not the truth, because estate planning really applies to anybody who has any type of estate. So now, what is an estate exactly? Is it some 100-acre plantation house out in the middle, of a big farm somewhere? Or is it a huge house up in Atlanta? No, it can be for sure, but not all estates are huge and not all estates are worth millions of dollars. So an estate really is anything that is assets. So you really have an estate if you own any assets. So for example, a house, if you have retirement accounts, life insurance policies, if you have investment accounts, bank accounts, anything like that. If you have any of these items, you have an estate because you have assets. So in Georgia, which is where we are located, I'm with Arch Legacy Firm, and we are a firm in Athens, Georgia. In Georgia, if you have any of these items when you pass away, your estate will most likely go through probate. And there's only a couple of ways too outside of estate planning to avoid this process. So what exactly is probate? We can't really talk about estate planning without first talking about probate. What is probate? Probate is the court process that happens after somebody passes away. So if you pass away, your family will have to file probate with the court in order for your assets to be gathered, creditors paid, and then your assets distributed. And this literally applies to everybody. There are only a couple of ways, again, to exempt out of probate. The first is if you literally have no assets. If you have no estate, no assets, no house, nothing, then your family won't have to go through probate. Or if you're married and jointly own everything with your spouse, including your house, with joint rights of survivorship, then your family will probably not have to go through probate after you pass away. The other way to avoid probate is with estate planning. So what is estate planning and what does it include? So the most typical go-to thought when it comes to estate planning is going to be a will. Everyone has typically heard of a will. I get the phone calls all day long. Hey, I need a will, or hey, I need to update my will, or I need a new will. And wills are very commonly known, and they are extremely important documents. Wills are legal directives that tell the judge during probate what you want to happen to your estate. Who do you want to name as executor? Who do you want to name as your beneficiaries? And who do you want your kids' guardians to be if they are minors? That is what a will is for. So it is a myth that wills avoid probate. In fact, wills are actual directives for the probate process. What else does estate planning include? Well, estate planning is also going to include incapacity documents. So what happens if you're incapacitated, if you are in the hospital with COVID and on a ventilator? Well, it's really, really important to have power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and advanced healthcare directives. These are all incapacity documents, and they're all very, very important. Advanced healthcare directives are also known as living wills, by the way, which are a totally different thing than a last will and testament. And I get phone calls asking for living wills as well. So I've heard it all. So incapacity documents are really important. So what about your kids? So with minor kids, we like to do what's called a kids protection plan. Now, only a certified personal family lawyer is going to do a kids protection plan, but basically, instead of just naming permanent guardians, a kids protection plan is going to name emergency guardians, a successive list of permanent guardians, and minor medical power of attorneys, so that someone could get your child medical treatment if necessary and y'all were not able to. What happens with kids that are no longer minors but are not married yet? So, for example, once kids turn 18, they are no longer minors in the state of Georgia. And what a lot of people don't realize is that once they're no longer minors, mommy and daddy don't get to make decisions for them anymore automatically. So your 18 and plus kids also need healthcare power of attorneys and power of attorneys so that you can still make the decisions for them or help them out if there's an accident or anything like that. And of course, after 18, they're the ones that need to make this decision. So you would want to talk to them to see if this is something they're interested in doing, or at least explain why it is so important. Another aspect of estate planning that a lot of people don't think about is what happens to your fur babies. What happens to your pets, your dogs, your cats, if something happens to you? Do you know who you want to take them? Do you want to give them a little bit of money to help them pay for the expenses of your animals? We got to make sure that our fur babies are taken care of too. So we do a lot of that in estate planning. Some other common things that are involved with estate planning are long-term care planning. What's going to happen if you end up in a nursing home, which costs on average $10,000 a month in Georgia? We want to make sure that we plan for that, whether it's with life insurance or trust or something like that. Now, what about asset protection or estate tax planning? For families that do have more assets, that do have more bigger estates, multi-million-dollar estates, we're going to need to do some advanced estate planning, and that can include different types of irrevocable trust or grantor trust. So make sure that if you have a high net worth, that you get that taken care of, because honestly, right now, we're looking down the throat at some very large tax changes that the Biden administration has proposed. Other than that, estate planning is just basically getting all of your ducks in a row to make sure that if anything happens to you, your family is taken care of. And that's really, really, really important. You just want to make sure that you do this advanced planning and make it as easy as possible for your family on the back end. And the best way to do that is something called a revocable living trust. And this is kind of a will alternative, but honestly, we still do wills with this as well, just slightly different types of wills. But a living trust is really, really important, because a living trust is something that enables your family to avoid probate. So I said that there were two ways that you can avoid probate outside of estate planning. This is the third way that you can avoid probate with estate planning, and that is a revocable living trust. So instead of a legal directive that goes to a judge, instead we create a mechanism, kind of a bucket that holds your assets for you. It doesn't change anything as far as your day-to-day. You still own everything. You can still sell everything, buy new things, add to it, subtract from it, anything you need to do. But what it does is it names successor trustee that can step in immediately in the event of you passing away and there's no probate or court process. So that is another form of estate planning that's really, really, really important, especially for families that do have a house and minor children that cannot inherit. So those are some ideas of what estate planning is. It's not an exhaustive list, but it certainly covers a lot of what we do during estate planning. And let me tell you, the most important thing to remember is that if you have minor children, then you need estate planning, because your minor children are your most important assets. So even if you don't feel like you have a lot of assets, you need to make sure that your babies are taken care of and that they're going to go to who you want to raise them if anything's to happen to you. Because heaven forbid that there's a custody battle, or even worse, your children end up in foster care. So just make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. Estate planning applies to everyone, not just the super rich. And in fact, the super rich are some of the worst at estate planning. So make sure that you call an attorney, make sure it's an attorney that really does comprehensive and personalized planning, and that can make sure that they do a plan for you that's going to work and make it as easy as possible for your family on the back end. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you like this video, if you learned something, please like it and please subscribe to my channel. And I hope all of y'all have a fabulous day and a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.